Today we're going to talk about color grading. My name is Juan Porta, and in this channel you can find tutorials on how to make videos, gear reviews, and overall creative content.
Oh, I caught it dancing slowly, a beautiful sight to see.
Color grading is very important for your videos because it will set your videos apart. If your footage does not look good straight out of camera, you're going to have a lot of trouble and it's going to be super hard to do it on post. So make sure you nail your exposure right, and also that you nail your white balance. I think the most accurate way is using a gray card. Most cameras have an option where you can grab a gray card, snap a picture, and then it's going to base all the white balance. I'm going to leave timestamps on the bottom on the description of this video, so if you want to skip it to certain places you can do that. Let's jump into the computer and let's go find out how to do this. Here we have these two clips. One is one of my face and the other one's a little bit about nature. The reason why I chose these two clips to show you is because the most important things in your imagery is your skin tones. You will do a basic correction and a white balance, but eventually you're going to get to a point where you're going to mess with the colors, and you do not want to mess with the skin tones. You want to leave those looking natural. This footage was shot in slog 3, which looks like this, flat, no contrast. I love shooting in it because it allows me a lot of room when color grading, color correcting. The very first thing I want to do when I start color correcting is to get this graph over here. This is going to tell me where my light is. To be able to access this, you're going to go to Window, Workspaces, Color and Effects. Sometimes it will show you 4 different ones, and I want to work with the Luma. Go here, click, select Waveform, select Luma, and I'm going to just keep that one. I always like using adjustment layers because they allow me to make changes to the adjustment layer. And I have a base grade and a loop grade, and I will do all my basic correction on this adjustment layer and all the loop grade in a separate one. Just drag this on top of your footage. The first thing I need to do is to transform this footage into footage that I can work with. Find a custom LUT and drop it into your adjustment layer. These LUTs are all over the internet. You can go to the Sony website or the Canon website and find that LUT that is going to transform your log footage into Rec 709, which is the codec that, now that our footage is transformed, we're going to do a basic correction. What we want to do is look at our Luma graph. This represents the highlights, this represents the shadows, and the midtones should not be over 70 IRE, which is the natural skin tone exposure. Go to the coloring options. On the exposure tab, we're going to find the shadows, the midtones, and the highlights. We want to bring our shadows down right before they turn into 0. And we want to bring our highlights right below 100, and that should be good. We can bring down our midtones a little bit. You could use this footage now. This is something that you can post or use. It's functional. You want to make sure that your white balance is on the spot, but if you didn't get it right out of camera, you can add a color wheel, and then you have a temperature slider and a tint slider. This is for yellows and blues, and this is for magentas and greens. I'm just gonna leave it like it is because I feel like I really nailed it when I was on camera. But the idea is for the whites to look white. That's gonna give you the right skin tones. A little trick that I use is that I go into my vector scopes. This is a vector scope. It tells you where the colors are in your image. This line over here is the skin tones. Your skin tones should line up with this line. I'll select the clip and then I'll crop it until you have some of the skin selected. Now I'm noticing that it's very saturated and the colors are a little more on the red side. So to fix this, I'm gonna go back into my color space and find the wheel at the color wheel, and I'm going to work with the midtones wheel. This represents this. So if I want to pull the skin tones to line up with the skin tones line, I'm going to grab the midtones by the middle, and I'm going to move around it until it aligns, and then I can drop the saturation. Then we click here to remove the crop, and now our skin tones look more natural. Once we fix the skin tones, the rest of the scene is going to look better. Now we're ready to work with our look grade, and for that we're going to drop another adjustment layer. Here we're going to add some style. We don't want to disturb the skin colors, so if you overdo this, your footage is going to end up looking terrible. So just don't overdo it. And we have several tools here that you can use. For example, if you want to add some orange and teal, which is a very famous look, you can go to the color tab. Again, these are the shadows, midtones, and these are the highlights, and this is the global. So if I move this into the red, and then I add red, it's going to add red to the whole scene. But if I drop it down, it's going to remove red, and it's going to leave some green. I don't want to use the global. I want to make changes to the shadows and the highlights. We're going to go in the shadows, and we're going to add some teal to the shadow. So we're going to move the slider into the teal zone and add some teal, some just subtle. It's not too much. We don't want to overdo it. And then we want to add some oranges into the highlights. So we're going to go into the orange and bring it up a little bit, and it's going to add orange into the highlights. There's another tool called the color curves, and I normally like to lift the shadows a little bit. So I'm going to add a control point here and another control here. That way, if I make changes to this part of the curve, it's not going to affect any other part of the curve. These are my highlights, these are my shadows, and these are my midtones. If I start playing with this, it's going to change your midtones. See how my skin tones go like strange? What I can do is lift the shadows. Once I've anchored it, I can lift the shadows a little bit, and it's going to give me that faded look. It's going to lift the shadows, and it's going to look like faded, if you can see here in my hair. And it all has the same look because we're using an adjustment layer. If I bring my adjustment layer here, you're going to be able to see the difference. I don't know. What do you think?
What do you think?
I think it's good. I really hope that you find value in this video. If there's anything you want me to help you to figure out, leave a comment below. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a tutorial.